Oh yeah, we can talk. We can talk.
Welcome to the Price Writer podcast with Catrin and me, Jeremy Keating. Join us as we explore and discuss the world of insurance-related books, offering our insights, recommendations, and crucially, how to apply these to price and roll. So it's officially summer. It's proper hot today. So I think it's close to 30 degrees and I'm sat here with the window closed because I am recording. So you might know someone who has finished exams recently. So maybe one of your children, a niece or nephew or a friend of the family. And possibly they're looking for some beginner level maths and statistics books to encourage them on to the next stage. Catrin has chosen 3 to share with us, and I hope you will share them with others who are just starting out on their mathematical careers as well. So, hi, Catrin.
Hi, Jeremy.
Hello. So, there are a lot of popular science and maths and statistics books out there. How did you choose the 3?
Well, I think firstly I chose books that I've already read myself, so you are getting personal recommendations from me. But I think that when we think about what we want from graduates and young people nowadays, that education is a lot less about memorizing stuff, particularly with AI. We just don't need to memorize as much anymore. The information is already out there. So it's more about I guess, the attributes or the way you think about things. And so I've chosen 3 books that I think represent key attributes that you need for STEM subjects or general insurance pricing as well. I think they're really key. So I've chosen Curiosity, Communication through Data, using data to relay a message, and also Problem Solving. How do you approach problems, and what do you do when you get to a really tricky problem that might not be solvable with the tools you already have? So those are the 3 attributes that I thought were really important.
They sound good to me. The problem solving attitude's an interesting one. So my daughter is studying for 11 plus at the moment, and I need to teach her that it's okay not to know stuff. What you need to do when you don't know stuff is try to work out how to solve it. Whereas she gets a little bit despairing at the moment and it's a bit, oh, I don't know how to do it. And she gets upset. But actually, it's like she's going to the wrong part of her brain. She should be going to the part of her brain that is, I don't know this, but what can I do about it? And curiosity is a good one as well. I think we should think about employing people that are more curious about things. We talk about let's ask people about their hobbies and wider interests and things like that. But often, I perhaps feel it doesn't necessarily go anywhere. But actually, thinking about what people are like in the sense of whether they're curious people and problem solving people, not just at work, but outside in their own lives, could be quite a useful approach.
Yeah, I do think actually that talking about hobbies tells you quite a lot about a person though.
Mm.
I actually really like it. Not only is it put people at ease, obviously it's a nice softball interview question, but one of the best graduates I've ever hired was someone who ran their own sneaker reselling business. When he talked about that, he told me everything that I needed to know. You know, he understood profit. He understood how to make a viable business, and he understood what he would need, what the ingredients were for pricing to get it right. So, and I just thought it showed a lot of drive. So I do think that hobbies can be a really, really powerful way to communicate something about yourself. But definitely, if you're in an interview and someone asks you about your hobbies, do know that they don't actually care what your hobbies are. They kind of want to hear more about what that says about you as a person. So I think some people kind of maybe misinterpret the hobby question.
Mm. Yeah, I think
Maybe.
so. I think also the whole school system doesn't really tell people why it's a good idea to have hobbies. It's a bit like make sure you've got very wide stuff on your career so you seem very interesting. And I think communication through data is always a useful skill. I think that's probably one of the trickiest ones that people get. We're talking graduates. Obviously, people don't come in with the best skills in that regard. So, what is the first book, Catrin?
Yeah, so the most accessible book on this list is called Storm in a Teacup by Helen Szyzerski. It has got such a gorgeous cover. Do you know, this actually might be one of the most controversial things I ever say on this podcast.
Okay.
I don't like dust jackets.
Oh,
Don't
I
like
don't
them.
either. I always just take them off. Yeah.
Put those in the bin. But
Yeah.
so I got this book and the dust jacket is white. It has a little teacup on the front. A lot of people
Wow.
realize that when you take the dust jacket off, it has a little cutout and you see this swirly pattern, but underneath it's this gorgeous swirly pattern.
Best to put it in front of your face. Yeah, because yeah.
How gorgeous is this pattern? Isn't it?
That is oh, yeah, I can see it. That is gorgeous. Sort of fractally, isn't it?
It's absolutely gorgeous. So
Awesome.
firstly, full marks for the actual book itself. Um, it's about 300 pages, but it is really accessible. It's fun. And it jumps between biology, chemistry, physics, so all the sciences, but in a really logical way. You're never left thinking, wait, what is going on here? It's perfect probably for anyone in high school or above, so maybe 11 plus, that kind of age. Or to be honest, anyone who has really fond memories of high school science class, if you want to just feel inspired again, it's totally book for you. As an example, one of the chapters is all about air pressure, and she talks about the basics of how air pressure works and Boyle's law. But then she relates that to why does popcorn pop?
Oh,
Grains don't. And also, when a whale dives deep underwater, how does the weight of the water not crush them totally? How do they
mm,
manage to live? I don't know.
mm.
And so you can see kind of she's jumping around between the physics and then the biology, and then she kind of jumps back to chemistry again. It's really interesting. And the theme that just runs through it all is curiosity about the world around us. So it might actually get you like purposely spilling your coffee to investigate surface tension, spinning eggs to look at momentum, or making popcorn, as a science experiment. So yeah, a really, really fun read. And all those things that you're like, well, I just know that popcorn pops. That's fine. If you never really thought that deeply about why don't that happen?
Is there anything more dreadful in an office when you hear that unmistakable noise of a drink being spilled and people suddenly running into a panic? I don't think I'll be spilling a drink on purpose, to be honest. That's the sort of thing that makes me really twitchy. But I would say curiosity is really important, actually. We touched on it just now, but definitely for people in teams, being interested in data and what you can find out. And actually, often when we ask people to investigate things and come back with recommendations, they're doing an impact analysis and so on, it's good in those circumstances to actually suggest that people are a bit more curious about what they could do.
So the coffee thing is that basically if you spill coffee, when you spill coffee, it leaves like a brown line at the very outside.
Yeah.
And she was like, why
Oh,
does it
yeah,
have
yeah.
a uniformly brown spill mark?
Yeah, it's a good idea. Why is that?
Well, it's all because of surface tension. And this works with instant as well as fancy coffee.
Okay.
Spill whatever you want. But the idea is that the liquid wants to retain the same surface tension, the same shape. So as the liquid evaporates from the edges, it's going to evaporate from there first because it's got more surface area. More of that liquid is going to rush back to the outside, and it's going to get progressively more coffee concentrated as more of the water evaporates. So basically that's what it is. Anyway, it's so fun, isn't it? It is actually a fun book.
It does look really fun, actually. When I saw it on your list, I was actually like, "Oh, I've seen that before, but never read it." And I've not read much popular science for ages, and it looks like a really interesting one. I saw the blurb said something about, "Are you curious about these things?" And I was immediately going, "Oh, I'm curious about those things, actually." I'll tell you one I always find funny. I don't know if it's covered in the book, but the buoyancy of ships, particularly like you see big battleships with very sharp and distinct hull downwards. And I look at them and I understand buoyancy in like the science part of my brain. But the sort of everyday part of my brain is just like that should just fall over. That should not stay up in or just go straight down. How does that should not work? Like that's like thousands of tons of battleship and it should just sink down. So Catrin, what's the big thing you want a young person to take away from it?
I mean, this book is just an exercise in curiosity. So, I mean, to be honest, if it's your own child, then expect them to want to start making popcorn. It's really fun. There's a lot of experiments that you can do in your own kitchen, a lot of animal related kind of questions. You're probably going to get a whole load of why questions.
Yeah, brilliant.
But I think it's really good. And as an adult, sometimes we just take for granted that things work how they work because that's what we've been taught. So I think this is a
Mm.
really good way to kind of reset your curiosity and see things with fresh eyes. So that was the first book. I do recommend it. It's really accessible. My second book is called How to Lie with Statistics by Daryl Huff. It's a classic. Have you read it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, right there.
Classic. Yeah, it's really short, but it's a fun read for anyone who has a knowledge of mean, mode, median. As long as you've got that basic, say probably year 7, 8, I don't know. So somewhere around then, if you've got a 12 to 13-year-old, they would find this probably fun. It's a little bit cheeky, as you can tell by the title. And it covers things like data visualization, summary statistics, different biases. And the book seems to be all about how to manipulate data and how to make it say anything you want it to say. But I think that's the genius of it. It's not just about being false or being duplicitous. The book is really about what do you want to say with your data? And the whole book works on the premise that you know what it is you want as an outcome. And I think this is something that we don't do enough in insurance
Mhm.
pricing, actually.
Mhm.
So often we'll say, right, we're going to this meeting, I'll make this graph. Why? Well, because that's the graph that we always show in these
Yeah.
meetings.
Mhm.
Why? Like, why are we showing people that graph? I think we've all seen a presentation where they put something on screen and they go, yeah, I don't really have much to comment on this.
Yeah,
And you
I've
think,
definitely had that. Why did you put it in the pack? Yeah, I know.
great, good for you.
Um,
It's
Another one people do is like, this is self-explanatory, and it's not. It's for me who met like it's for us. A lot of the audience don't even like graphs.
Yeah, and so actually what I like about this book is, obviously most people who are kind of GCSE level or above are not going to find the manipulations in it particularly
Mm,
novel. But what it does do is it reinforces you to think, why am I reaching for a statistic
mm,
here?
mm,
Oh, and don't just say it's so I can make a data-led decision. Why am I actually using a statistic? What outcome is it I'm trying to drive? And how can I best use and display the statistics to get that outcome? I think that's really important. The kind of that manipulation process as part of communication, not just because I'm so fancy and I can use a dot describe or dot summarize, but really why? Why are we talking?
I like that. I find it useful. Things from that book I actually see in everyday life even now. So I read it many years ago, but it did help me to know when I'm being manipulated by graphs and charts, which happens, I'm afraid, when stuff in the media. You see it sometimes in YouTube videos as well. But I remember a particular one. I won't say what it was about because it's political, but they had done the scale, so the Y scale, the wrong way up. So it looked like the thing was decreasing, but it wasn't. It was increasing. But at first glance, and the title was about income of this change in some laws to do with decriminalisation. And it was clearly the problem had got worse, but they didn't want to say that in the article. And it's just barefaced manipulation. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously in insurance pricing, we don't do anything
No,
as
of
duplicitous as
course
that.
not.
But there is
Yeah.
a real point there about what were you trying to communicate there?
Yeah.
And how can we try and make that super clear? I did agree actually. Some of the examples from that book are about, if you want to show something doubling, if you show it as a two-dimensional picture instead of just on a graph. So
Mm,
say it's income, for example, instead of showing just a dot on a graph and showing it doubling, if you show it doubling in size both on your x-axis and your y-axis, it's 4 times bigger visually, but
yeah.
it's only double. There's things like that. But I think that's a really good. I think actually that's more important now than it was when I first read it when I was a
Hmm.
teenager. Being critical about the statistics we encounter in the wild, especially with the increasing amount of AI slop and um nonsense on the internet, circulating the web now, being able
Mm,
to think critically about data and statistics, as well as the intended reaction to it. What was the person trying to manipulate me into feeling? Just being
mm.
aware of that, I think that's super important. Now, I think now more than I when I read it 10 years, 15 years ago.
I think that's good, actually. I think particularly as you advance in your career, you actually get in front of more and more people who are busier and busier. And you do need to get to the point more often in the work that you do. So I think actually it's a good way of saying that, yes, statistics are important, but work out what ones are important and what you want to say about it. And think about how people are going to react in the way that you actually present the information towards getting the reaction that you think is the right one, and make sure you don't present it in a way that leads to the reaction you don't want, such as people immediately thinking, no, this is wrong, or I don't want to do that, or that's not a very good recommendation, and so on. So what is the final bit, Catrin?
The third book that I picked was on the topic of problem solving, and it's
Mm.
called Thinking Mathematically by John Mason and others. This was actually recommended pre-reading for my undergraduate course. So I read it the summer before I went to university. Yes, I was the singular nerd who actually read the books before
In
the.
the reading list as well. I was like, what should I, yeah, you got all summer long. Like, they've given you a list of books. So I read the books. Yeah, I know.
I didn't read all of them, but I did read this one. This one actually did look really good. And what I really liked about it is that it's not a book that relates to one specific course that I did at university. It's a book that teaches you methods for structuring your thinking and thought processes, whether you're doing a mathematical proof or you're problem solving. It's teaching you a way to think about that problem. And I still use ideas from this book, even
Mm.
now. Literally, I
Wow.
used one last week. The kind of questions it talks about are, if you're given a statement, is it true for really trivial cases, but 0, 1, negative numbers? Is there an obvious counterexample where you're like, yeah, it's clearly not going to work? I think that pricing people could probably use this check a little
Mm.
bit more when we make price adjustments or when we make changes to our systems. Do the trivial check. What would happen if something was input as 0, or genuinely, how does our system deal with negative? All of that kind of thing. Really, really useful check, and obviously, very useful at undergraduate level as well. But the one I use even today is he talks about it in terms of a magic wand. If I had a magic wand,
Okay.
what would help me solve this question? So imagine you are stuck on a problem, and it could be something like those technical interview questions that you often get, estimate the number of cars in the UK, or
Yeah, we were talking about that
piano
recently,
tuners in
weren't we?
Boston, or whatever.
Mm.
Say it can even be a question that it works for that, but it also works for really, really complicated mathematical proofs. And basically, you go as far as you can, and you get stuck. I mean, everyone's been there, right? And you're like, yep, cool. Where do I go next? And he says, imagine you've got a magic wand and you could get any piece of information right now. What would that be? And he suggests explicitly writing that out on a piece of paper. I would need to know this. I would need to know, I don't know whether it's a formula, but I last used this actually for project planning. So I was asked to come up with a long-term kind of 6-month project plan and ask whether something was possible. And the first answer was like, I have no idea, because I've never actually done this specific activity, this specific part of it. If I had have done that specific task, then I'd be able to give you a much better estimate. So until that point, I don't know. So in that case, my magic wand was, if I knew exactly with certainty how much time it would take, then I would be able to solve this question. But I don't know yet. And I think why this is so useful, both at an academic level or in insurance pricing, is that so often we don't really know the answer, and we're not that good at communicating certainty. Being able to say, well, look, I don't know. If I was sure on this one part of it, then I would be able to tell you with a good deal of certainty. But right now, that's where the uncertainty is. It's a really good communication tool, I think. It also helps you to communicate when you will be able to give a final answer. Say, well, you know, once I get this information, and I'll get this information by doing X, Y, and Z, then you're going to have a much more conclusive answer. So I think whether you're an analyst doing some work and, for example, something open-ended like a reconciliation, and your manager says, when will that be done? How long's a
Yeah,
piece of
it's a
string?
dreadful question though, often, isn't it? Because particularly with reconciliations, because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, I mean, how long's a piece of string on that, right? So I used to encourage my analysts to say, well, once I need to do these final summary checks,
Mm,
and work out where the issues are. But once I know how many issues there appear to be, then I can give you a much better estimate. So it can be a really good communication tool as well. And I think actually it's really useful for interviews. Like I say, if you've got those complicated interview questions and you get to the point where you're like, I don't really know,
yeah.
call it something, call it C for cars, and then say, right,
Mm,
well, I'll continue the question using the letter C. And
yeah.
at the end, you can just make an assumption and plug it in at the end. Like I say, it's such a useful tool that I use all the time.
I like the one I expect that I especially like the one about taking the trivial cases actually. So this is something I did recently where I was trying to communicate about regulation, the most exciting subject possible, the regulation of pricing. I was talking about how, for me, the extreme case is life assurance because it's very binary. You have a claim may or may not occur, a large payout may or may not occur. So it's quite straightforward. And that's a really, actually, really good case. Even if you're taking concepts from general, just think about them in that very 1-0 binary case, and whether actually what you're advocating would work well in that situation. Then it's potentially would work well in general insurance too. And communicating uncertainty, yeah, don't doesn't everyone's because there's a real problem there because you want people to think you've done good work. So as soon as you start telling them about all the problems with it, then you feel like you are making them less confident in the work. But actually, it goes to the other extreme as well, where people start their presentation with a huge list of things that are wrong with the analysis they're about to deliver, and then deliver the analysis. Is actually getting that balance right can be really very difficult. Well, the book I would most recommend to a young person thinking about a role in insurance pricing or even actuarial science or really insurance generally would be your book, Catrin. So I've got my copy here, which usually lives on the shelf just behind me. And the reason I say that is because I think your book takes them through all the concepts they ought to know in insurance in a really digestible, lovely, easy to read way. I've told you before, but I'll tell the world as well. So I do not find capital requirements terribly exciting. So since qualifying as an actuary, I've probably tried to avoid really anything to do with setting capital requirements except the bare minimum you have to do when you work at an insurer. But actually, the chapter in your book, it opens talking about how you don't like holding money. And it just so engaging. It just really made me interested. And I actually read a whole chapter on capital and enjoyed it. So really good book. I do thoroughly recommend it. It is targeted really well at young people who are interested, as well as wider people that are interested as well. But I do think particularly young people will take a lot away from your book.
Yeah, it is actually the recommended pre-reading couple of university courses for actual science and I think a math and stats as well. So, you might see it on a recommended reading list, but yeah, it's meant to be accessible. It's meant to be the book that I wish I could have read at this age when I was trying to work out what I wanted to do for a career from between 12 and to almost 12 and 17. I didn't really know even what I wanted to do at university. And so I was trying
Mhm.
to figure all that out. And I knew I loved maths and I loved science as well. And it was more about, for me, trying to extend my own interest in it because, school syllabuses now, they're short on time. They're only going to cover a certain amount of stuff. So let your reading and your curiosity take you to the next level. And so I read loads of maths and science and some statistics books during that age. And I think that's what kind of really got me into more of the problem solving side of it. It was by reading lots of popular science books that I thought, sure, not very good experiments. And
Yep.
doing an experiment doesn't really interest me that much. Maybe one time on this podcast, I will share the book that changed my life, the book that made me finally decide on my university degree.
Ooh.
But maybe that's more for an. It's a much longer book, and I probably wouldn't recommend it to younger younger readers. Just
Okay.
think that the Second World War is
Okay.
a bit more of an intense topic, I guess. But yeah, these three super readable, super accessible.
Oh, hang on, Catrin. Have you got your copy of your book with you?
Yes, always.
Excellent. Over the face, they can say it. Excellent.
Amazing. So they're 3 books that I read when I was a teenager. I don't know if anyone listening, we'd love to hear from you if you had a book you were given at about that time that particularly nurtured your interest in maths and science. So do post in the comments if we've missed a really great one. Next time, we'll be talking about the winners and finalists from the Next Generation Independent Book Awards. Jeremy, you in fact were a finalist in the Next Generation Independent Book Awards. Tell us just a little bit about what we could expect.
That's right, Catrin. So we had the honour recently of going to Philadelphia, which was fantastic. Had a really good time. And we collected my award and a wonderful award ceremony for being a finalist in the business reference category. And we met many other authors in a wide genre of books. And we've picked a small number to talk about on the podcast, which we feel would be beneficial to pricing people. So not just business. We looking at a wide range of books which we think a pricing professional will find useful in their career.
Yeah, you don't have to read them all. You can just listen to the podcast and take from the good stuff that we say. Or maybe it will help you pick up a new book outside your comfort zone.
Why not let us read them for you and let you know which ones we think will benefit you?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next time.
Price Writers transforms pricing professionals into the most respected leaders in insurance. Find out more about our engaging training, graduate schemes, and workshops by visiting pricewriters.com.